Okay, so this is our week 6 tutorial session. So this is the problem. This is the set of problems that we have, and we are going to solve it one by one. So the first one is that there is a diagram given. There are points marked as A, B, C, D, and E. You can see, and it is asked in the question that a car can go from position A to position B along three possible planar roads, out of which number one option is road number A to B. That is this path. Then option number 2 is ACB, that means A to C, then C to B, this path. Then there is road number option 3, that is ADEB, that means you come from here to all this path. So you can see that you are going starting from a single point A, same point, and you are reaching a same point B finally, but your path chosen for the three options are different from each other. Thus, the shortest most path is obviously the straight line path connecting the 2 points, which is AB in this case, but you can also reach from A to B following other paths like from point C to B, then you go a bit longer than AB. Then if you add two more points in between, and then you take basically even a longer route, but eventually you will reach B. So your initial and final point are the same, but your path is different. Now it is asked in the question that assume gravity acts perpendicular to the plane of the paths. Obviously, if the path is in, let's say, in XY plane, then you are sitting on that path and your gravity will be acting vertically from that plane. That means vertically downwards from that plane. That is, it is perpendicular to the XY plane, right? Then it is said that if the drag coefficient due to the air and the speed of the car is the same along the three paths, that means whenever the car is trying to move along the path, it will not be a frictionless motion, because obviously the air that is present, that will produce a drag force that will be trying to drag the car behind, and it is sort of like a friction. And basically it is said in the question that that drag coefficient for the drag force due to air is actually the same value for all the three paths. So in that sense the paths are equivalent. Now it is asked that will the fuel compensation of the car can be the same along the all three paths. So here the basic principle that you will need to solve this or answer this question is that uh, what is your work done. So basically fuel consumption means you have to be considering about the energy that is being utilized to move the car from point A to point B, and you know that energy is equivalent to work done. So energy is equivalent to basically your work done, and energy is actually telling us what is the fuel consumption, because based on that how much energy is being spent, based on that how much fuel is utilized, that will be decided. So you have to consider that how much energy is being used for traveling this path using three different options from A to B. Then basically you have to know about the work done. Now work done has this very simple fundamental idea that if W is your work done, then W is equal to basically F dot dx, where you go from xi to xx. So I am taking an infinitesimal distance of x, that is dx, and I am taking initial point as xi and final point as xf, and I am taking an integral over the force dot dx. So this is the force that is acting against which the work is done. So basically here xi and xf are your initial and final points in this case. So if this is the work done formula, then what you understand from here is that this work done not only depends on the uh, initial and final point. So basically from here the idea is that work done is not a state function, but it's a path function. So like internal energy U, U is a state function. That means if you have the you are remaining at the same state. So let's say you start from a state and you travel some path and you come back to the same state again. So in that case your internal energy will be remaining the same for that case. But for work done, the work done will not be zero, because the work, some energy is being spent when you are moving from one point to the other point and again coming back, right? So that is there. Now, so that tells you that work done is a path function and not a state function. That means I am meaning to say is that, let's say this is 2 points, let's say P and Q, and I start from P to Q along this path. So again, after reaching Q, I am again coming back the same path, same point P again, following back towards this path. So I am going from P to Q, and then again I am coming back to P following this path. So basically what I am doing is that after some time, I am starting at P, starting at P, going to Q, and again coming back to P, right? That means my initial, after this whole process, my initial state is equal to my final state. So in such a case, the change in internal energy, or U, will be 0, where U is the internal. So for delta, so this is the internal energy change. So that is 0. Why? Because U is a state function. That means no matter what path you have chosen or what path you have traveled, but if your final initial point is the same, if you are remaining at the same point, then your internal energy will not change. So it will not depend on the path you have traveled or anything, but because you are starting from P and you are going to Q and again coming back to P again, so the internal energy at P has not changed, because U at P before is equal to V at P after you travel the path. That is why you are coming back to the same point and your delta U becomes 0. But for the same logic, if you take your work done, but for the work done, W is non-zero when you are choosing such a process. Why? Because this is a path dependent process, right? So even if you come back to the same point, but because you have to spend some amount of energy, because you have to go from P to Q and then again come back from Q to P, that is a path that some energy is being lost or being spent there. So that is why work done is not equal to 0, since it's a path function. So it does not matter whether you have come back to the same point or the same state or not, but because you have traveled some path or some distance, that makes your work done non-zero. So basically, utilizing the same idea, you can tell directly here that even if you are going from the same point A to the last same point B, and you are choosing 3 different paths, path number 1, path number 2 and path number 3. But because they are 3 different paths, so because of which this dx element will be different for different paths, right? And then when you, even if you integrate from the same initial and same final xi and xz, but your integration value to give you the work done will be different. So this will be different for different paths taken, even if initial and final points are same for all the 3 paths. So basically that tells you that the answer will be no, because work done by the drag force will be different along these 3 different routes. So basically you can say from this clue that they gave here that the drag coefficient is same for all the 3 paths. That means the drag force will be the same for all 3 paths. So drag force F is same for all 3 paths. But even if that, but this dx changes because you are choosing different paths, and that actually gives you different work done. So the fuel consumption, because the work done is different, so the fuel consumption by the car will also be different along the three paths. So even if you do not consider all these physics ideas, you can simply know by simple idea that obviously if you take a longer path, that will actually allow you to, like, cause you to consume more fuel by the car. But if you take a shorter path, you cover a shorter distance, so because of which your car will consume lesser fuel. So that is a very simple idea question, but in terms of physics aspect, this is the answer, that why we are getting like that, because that is dependent, the fuel consumption is dependent all on the work done, that is done by the car when it is moving across different paths. That is what we have to utilize here. So I hope this question was clear, and then we move on to the second question, that a slider whose mass is 2 kg can move along a path to compress a spring as shown in the adjacent figure. The slider is reached from rest position at position A and slides without friction along the vertical plane guide that is shown here. This is the vertical plane guide. If g is 9.81 meter per second square, then what is the speed Vb of the slider as it passes the position B? So this is one position B marked here, okay, and this is another position of this vertical part, which is position number A. This is position E, this is position C, position D. So different shape is given and different points are marked, but you have to calculate what is the velocity B at this point B. Now, the only hint that you have to solve this question is that the slider that moves, this is a slider, let's say this slider has a mass of 2 kg. That means its mass is equal to 2 kg, will be causing a gravitational acceleration force, because of the gravitational acceleration g, there will be a weight force, that is gravitational force, basically mg, acting downwards from this point, and that will also give rise to some potential energy, and you have to basically apply the energy conservation principle, because you know that between 2 points energy will be conserved if there is not stated otherwise, and energy means the total sum of potential energy plus kinetic energy, so you have to consider both of them, and from that it will be calculated. So let us choose our white page and start solving it. So I am drawing it very crudely, I do not need to draw it very accurately because the idea should be clear only. So there is a spring like this, and then so up to this point we are not bothered about, because this is your point A and this is your point B, which is the minimum point, and this is the mass M. Now this is acting, this is causing an effective weight mg downwards because of this gravitational acceleration g, which is acting downwards, and this height, if you mark from A to B, okay, so this height is basically your height, let's say this is h height, okay, and then when you come to the lowest point, and this is the highest point A, so you have to calculate what is the velocity here. So what is the velocity Vb at this point? Now because it has started from rest, because initially it is not mentioned in the question that the mass that is at position A has some velocity, so you assume that it has started from the rest position, so that means the velocity at this position is known, that is 0, that is the particle does not have any velocity at this point. Also it was kind of a rest position, and it is situated at some height h, so whenever it is at a stable position there, so you can also take the potential energy to be the reference point of potential energy to be here, because you can set your reference 0 of potential energy at this point A. So here the potential energy V at A will also be 0. But after you come down to point number B, then you come down from point A to point B by this height h. That means you are now reproducing some now gaining some potential energy after coming at point B, and the potential energy at point B will be mg times h, because it has a gravitational force mg acting downwards and it is traveling h height downwards, so that is why it is mg h, right? And also because this is like in the downwards direction, right? This is in the downwards direction. So because of this, this is coming from a higher reference point to lower point. So that is why your reference, your potential energy will be negative. Why negative? Because it's just a convention that if you take your potential energy to be zero at your point A, okay, so this is a reference point of potential energy you can set. So this is a reference for potential energy, and generally standard reference of potential energy is taken at a point where the potential energy is also is actually zero, and with respect to that 0 point you actually identify the potential energy at some other point. So let's say if you would have been at a point that is at some height capital H, then your potential energy would be plus mg capital H, because you are at a higher, you are going from a lower point to a higher point. But in this case you are coming from a higher point A to a lower point B, so because of which your potential energy will have a negative sign in that. So that is why you are getting VB or V at position B equal to minus mgh. Here capital V I mean potential energy and small v I mean the velocity. So here what you have to use is that you have to use the energy conservation principle. Energy conservation principle between point A to B. That means the kinetic energy at point A plus kinetic energy, Ke is the short form of kinetic energy, kinetic energy plus the potential energy plus at point A. So basically at point A, this is the kinetic energy and this is the potential energy, is equal to the kinetic energy at point B plus the kinetic energy, the potential energy at point B, right? Because the total energy at point A is equal to the total energy at point A is equal to the sum of kinetic energy plus potential energy, and the total energy at point B is equal to also the sum of kinetic plus potential. Now if you look at point A, so there you neither have this kinetic energy because it starts from rest VA equal to 0. So if VA equal to 0, then the kinetic energy half m VA square is also 0. That means the kinetic energy at point A is equal to 0, right? But what about the potential energy at point A? So potential energy at point A is equal to V bracket at A is equal to 0 because it's chosen as the standard reference points of the potential. So in this case, the total energy at A is equal to kinetic energy part is 0 at A and the potential energy part is also 0 at A. Now the kinetic energy part at B will be coming from the velocity at B. So it is half m pb squared plus the potential energy at B will be only coming from traveling this height downwards from A to B. So this is minus mg, as I told that it will have a minus sign because it is sitting below the 0 energy standard reference point of the potential. So that is why it is negative. So now here we get half m pb squared is equal to mg h. M and m cancels out, so pb is equal to root over 2gh. Now what is the value of root over 2gh? So g is already given in the question as 9.8 meter per second square and h is given as let us take h. H is given as this 3 plus 1.5, that means it is 4.5, right? So this distance is 4.5 that we have. So if you calculate this, it will be coming closer to 9.4 meter per second. So this is also the correct answer. So we are right about the solution. Now question number 3 is that an escalator in a railway station can elevate a steady load of 60 people per minute from the platform to overbridge by a vertical rise of 8 meter. The average mass of a person is 68 kg. Then what is the power output of the motor driving the escalator? So power output means you have to calculate your energy by time, right? Because power is energy by time. But for that you have to first know the energy that is being spent for this escalator to actually like take that load of people. Now, because the answer, the hint is already given in 60 people per minute, that means that is the rate of people that the escalator is carrying load of. So, you have to also take it as per minute formula, and then finally that will be helpful because the energy per minute will be then, you have to convert into energy per hour, and it will be giving you the power output in watt. Okay. So now we start that what is the work done in this case? So this is question number 3. So in this case, the work done is very simple, just like what we used before, that this total escalator has an effective length of 8 meter, and this 8 meter it is trying to escalate the people up to. So it is the height h that it is trying to escalate up to. Okay. So work done is always equal to mg times h, where h is known as 8 meter. What is m? M here is basically the load that the escalator carries because of 60 people per minute. So each person has 68 kg per average weight. So that means total mass is equal to 60 into 68 kg. Equal to net mass. Into g is already given 10 meter per second square, into h is given as 8 meter. So this is all 60 people is 60 people per minute. So this is per minute. So if you have to consider for simplicity everything in per second, so that actually gives you that 60 into 68 into what was 10 cube? Just wait a minute. So this is m 16 to 68, and then g will be just simply 10 meter per second square. So there will be no 10 cube. Sorry, my mistake. And then you have to take the height, which is 8 meter, that is known to us. So this is 60 into 68 into 10 into 8. Now this is the work done. This is per minute. So to convert into a power, so power is basically work done by time. So this is a 1 minute time, so that is it is a 60-second time. Okay. So that means you have this 60 and 60 cancelling out, 68 into 10 into 8. So this is 5400. So this is what? 5400 is what? Because this is what is we get from here as the work done or the power output of the motor driving the escalator. This is 5400. Sorry, 5440. So this was like that. So this matches with this answer. Now, in the question, it is asked that a particle of mass m moves toward x equal to 0 under the influence of a potential minus ax to the power n, where a is greater than 0 and n is greater than 0. Suppose at time t equal to 0, the particle starts at some place on the positive position, on the positive half of the x-axis. See the adjacent figure. The particle has just enough energy to reach x equal to 0. That is, it stops upon reaching the point of origin x equal to 0. For what values of n will it reach x equal to 0 in a finite time? So, the problem of the solution is that again you have to use the energy conservation principle, right? So in this case, your potential energy is fixed, that is a functional form, that is minus a mod x to the power of n. So if no sam minus a x to the power of n. So basically it tells you that also it is mentioned that a is greater than 0 and n is greater than 0. Okay, so but at x equal to 0, that is its final aim, or to reach the origin. X equal to 0, obviously mod x will be 0, so Vx, which is coming from this part, will be equal to 0. Now now we come about the kinetic energy for this case. So it is said that at t equal to 0, where the particle starts, it has just enough energy to reach x equal to 0. Uh, that means it has started with a 0 velocity. When x equal to 0, the velocity is also 0 and the kinetic energy is actually 0. So what you get is that at this is the point you start at. So this is at your, let's say, your initial point, let's say I, and this is your final point, which is the origin x equal to 0. So you are basically going towards the negative x-axis. So this is this point, so this is the negative x-axis. So now at point, which is the initial point I, your potential energy V x equal to minus a mod x to the power of n, but at the starting point the velocity is also 0. Then when you go to point F, so then going at point F, your x is no longer 0. I made a mistake here. Basically, I meant to say that at x equal to 0, that is your final destination at point I, that is a final, that is the initial point, Vx equal to minus a x mod to the power of n, because here there is a finite x on this initial point I. This is a potential energy function, and the kinetic energy that it has, the particle has at the position, initial position, kinetic energy at initial position I is equal to half mv square, because vi is the velocity of the particle at that point A. So, and when you reach point B, that is x equal to 0, then Vx becomes minus a, this is also 0, but the kinetic energy at F equal to is equal to 0, because it is said that the particle has just enough energy to reach x equal to 0. That means after reaching x equal to 0, it will be at rest, it will have no energy left. So because of which we can say that, okay, this is the scenario. And now again applying the same energy conservation principle, your V, capital V, which is the potential energy at point A, is equal plus kinetic energy at point A is equal to potential energy at point B plus kinetic energy at point B. Now at point A, the potential energy is basically minus a x to the power of n, plus kinetic energy at point A is what is the kinetic energy at point A? So basically when we take difference velocity half, because of which there will be a potential energy for the particle which is half mv squared. So basically we take that at point A the velocity is basically half m vi squared equal to the potential, and potential at point B is 0 because you have reached x equal to 0 and it is a x dependent function. So if x equal to 0 then v x equal to 0, that means at B the potential energy is 0. Then the kinetic energy KEB is half m v b squared. So in that case, uh, this whole thing will be an equation to solve for us. But right now, because the potential energy is already 0 because we are sitting at x equal to 0, but also the kinetic energy is 0, that means this part is also 0, which makes the solution simpler, that you simply take half m vi squared is equal to a mod x to the power of n, and v is equal to minus a. So basically this would have been the case. Now this is mv squared, so this is a by, so from here the v will be like, so this is not a minus and this is a plus sign because this comes to the other part. So this is now plus sign. So v equal to root over of 2a by m x to the power of, there is a square root that is going on here. So this is 2a by m x to the power of m. So this is x to the power of n by 2. So single trial 2a by m. So v is equal to root over 2a by m x to the power of n by 2. Right? Now it is said that it is asked that for what values of n will it reach x equal to 0 in a finite time. So now in this case, in this scenario, we take the derivative with respect to this, that if this is the final point that we have gotten, so v can be written as dx dt is equal to root over of 2a by n x to the power of n by 2. So this is the scenario that a by m to the power of n by 2. Now, once this is with you, then you just have to put the initial and final point. Also remember that you can take a minus sign here. Why it is negative? Because you are moving from a positive x to x equal to 0. Because we are moving from positive x to x equal to 0. That means towards the negative x-axis direction. So to demonstrate that, we have put this negative sign. So otherwise dx is equal to minus root over of 2a by m x to the power of n by 2. Now the initial and the final points are what are these initial and final points? So let us, we know the final point, that is x equal to 0, but we do not know about the initial point, so that we take as xi. So we are starting from the initial point xi and you are moving towards x equal to 0, that is the origin. And for, so basically what you have to do is that instead of taking limit on this, you have to differentiate the two different limits, that is you have dx by x to the power of n by 2 is equal to root over of 2a by m minus dt. So then you start with at x equal to xi point and go at x equal to 0, which is the origin. And you basically start at t equal to 0 and you reach x equal to 0, let's say by t time, right? So by t time, so you take this as small t simply. So this is dx by x to the power n by 2. Now just think about this thing, that to make this integral finite, your n by 2 will always have to be less than, will also always have to be less than 1. So n by 2 less than 1 must. Why? Because just plug in yourself for the values of n and you will see that why that is problematic. Because if you put x equal to 1, then it will be dx to the power so not x equal to 1, but I have to choose this thing. So x to the power n by 2. So if we choose now n equal to 1, then x to the power n by 2 becomes x to the power half or root over of x. So, but so this is not x to the power half exactly, because this we have to do the integral here. But the idea is that basically if you put your n as what do you say, n as 2, then you have, if n equal to 2, then you have dx by x to the power of 1 from xi to x equal to 0. So that is ln of xi from xi to 0 and ln 0 minus ln xi. This is the final state condition, that if your n is in 2 or something, then it is becoming infinity. So this finite integral is not possible. But if you take your n to be very small, that means it is n by 2 is less than 1. So because if n by 2 is equal to 1, what happens if n by 2 equal to 1? But now to actually get this, your condition will be that for the integral to be finite, you always have to choose n by 2 less than 1. So for left side, integral to be finite, we need n by 2 less than 1 or n is less than 2. So that is the answer, that for this case, if it has to move from this point to a point x equal to 0, and finally at it comes to x equal to 0, and then it stops. So that means after reaching this, this kind of a motion is possible when n is actually less than 2, because n by 2 is less than 1, as we saw there. So this is done. Now question number 5. Okay. So question number 5 is that we have a orbital motion. So there are two types of orbits given. First one is Earth, and around that moon is orbiting the Earth. And the second one is, this is the sun, and there is some comet that is orbiting around the sun. Now there are two different cases. Why? Because in the first case, simply this is a circular orbit of moon around the Earth, and in the second case, this is a elliptical orbit of the comet around the sun. And so in case, in the simple knowledge of ellipse and circle tells you that circle has a proper fixed center and it has a proper radius which is similar for all points on its periphery. That means if you take this point or this point or this point, the radius that is measured from the center to the point on the periphery is constant and same for all of them. So the Earth will be sitting at the center of the circular orbit, and the moon that is moving along different points on the periphery of the circular orbit. Now, in such a case, if the gravitational motion of the earth is actually trying to pull the moon towards the center because earth is sitting at the center. So this is the F earth, which is the F gravitational force of the earth on the moon. Now this is acting like a centripetal force. Why? Because it is acting, or it is pulling it towards the center, right? Centripetal force. So centripetal force is F earth, and you know the formula, that is mv squared by r. That means your v will be root over of F earth times r divided by m. So this is the velocity at different points on the earth's circular orbit. So this is at this point the velocity is v, at this point the velocity is v, and at this point the velocity is v. Now you know that velocity is a vector quantity. So the when I am telling you that on this point the velocity is v, I do not mean that the velocity is equal at each point, because velocity is a vector quantity, so it not only depends on the value or magnitude but also depend on the direction. So in this case what I am talking about is the magnitude of the velocity, that is constant or equal for all such points on the periphery. Because if you have a fixed gravitational force Fe and your r does not change from point to point, the radius does not change, and m is the mass of the moon. Okay, this is the radius of the circular orbit, and this is the gravitational force, which is the centripetal force, and this is the velocity of the moon at different peripheral points. Okay, so even if the magnitude of velocity is same, that is this, the magnitude, but the direction of velocity is changing, because you already know that that happens for a circle, that as you move along a circle, so at different point the direction of movement is along the tangent, right? So at different direction, different points, the tangent is along the different direction. So that is why on a circle you have all these different directions of velocity, and that is why the velocity is being different on different points. Okay, so now one question was that so you have to choose the correct answer. One question was that the earth gravitational force can change the kinetic energy of the moon but not the momentum of the moon. So something about the kinetic energy and momentum and how it is getting affected by the earth's gravitational force. Now first of all, the momentum of the moon. So this is the velocity of the moon, right? So then the P is equal to the momentum of the moon, that is coming from the centripetal force caused by the earth's gravitational pull. So this is the momentum of the moon is equal to the mass of the moon m times the velocity of the moon v vector. So at every point on the circle periphery, because the v vector is changing, so p is also a vector, so this is also changing in direction. So because on a circular periphery of orbit, velocity direction is continuously changing, and because of which your momentum should also change, because this is just a fixed mass times the velocity vector. So this is also changing, but as it's a vector, because it depends on the vector, so because it depends on the direction, so as it's a vector quantity, so that for the same reason the velocity is also changing at different points and the momentum is also changing. But energy on the other hand is a scalar quantity. So energy is a scalar quantity, so it does not depend on the direction, and that means that energy only has a value and not the direction. So that is, if that is the case, then the energy remains constant for all such points, because energy is simply force times the distance. So if force is remaining constant because of the earth's gravitational pull, and the distance is always r, right? So because of which the energy, which is a scalar quantity anyway, it will not be dependent on the direction. So that is why it is a scalar quantity, and its magnitude, it only has the magnitude, and the magnitude bar remains constant for such a case. So that means the kinetic energy will not be changed, but the momentum will change. So the answer where you see this option is that first of all, the earth's gravitational force can change the momentum of the moon but not the kinetic energy of the moon. This is one of the correct answers. The other case that is asked in this question is that how much work is being done when you are moving from this point A to B or point A to C. So work done is moving from a point to the other point is simply F times that point distance dr. So you are going from point A to point C on the circular orbit, and this F is a constant all throughout because it is a centripetal force, and this is a dot product, and dr vector is there. So dr vector is basically this distance along the radial path. So this is the, if this is the total r vector, so then a small part of it is dr vector, but that is perpendicular to the tangent on this point of the orbit. So if this is your, let's say, if this is your circle, and at this point your tangent on the on a point on the orbit is this direction, which is along this direction there is a velocity, but along this direction there is a radius r vector. Now if that is the case, then Earth's gravitational force doing work, how that is being understood. So basically, if this is V, okay, and then Earth's gravitational force to move from point A to point C, it is asked. So point C is where? Point C is here to here. Okay. So then so I made a mistake here, that here this is not FDR, but it will be simply like FDX or something, because your radial distance is along this distance. So you can choose your y-axis as like this and your x-axis like this. So while you are at a certain point on the periphery, you are always moving like this or like this or like this. So like say on this point, you are along this distance is your V. That means your mv squared by r, that force will be the gravitational force that will be always towards the center. So this is the F gravitational or F centripetal. So Fg is always radial, that is along r vector direction, and towards the center, because that is a gravitational pull towards the center. Okay. But the direction of movement is always along these tangential directions. So on each point you will see that if you are sitting at this point, you are moving along this direction and your force is acting on this direction. So your force and your direction of movement, if let's say this is your direction of movement x vector, so this is actually perpendicular to each other. That means f dot dx will be equal to 0 because they are perpendicular to each other, so their dot product will be 0. Similarly, if you are at this point and you are experiencing some gravitational force, so and this point and this point, so towards the center will be the gravitational force, and towards the tangent will be the direction of movement. So this is the x vector. So here do not forget about this x and y. X is my displacement vector that I am using on this case. So here f dot x is also 0 because the direction of movement and the force applied to do that are perpendicular to each other. So in that case, the work done is equal to 0. Like on this point also, if you are moving like say on this point, you are moving like this perpendicular, and you have a centripetal force acting along this. So this is f vector and this is r vector or x vector. So f dot x is always 0 for such a case. So work done by the Earth, gravitational force to move the moon from position A to position C is 0. So this option is, what is this option? So this is correct. The Earth's gravitational force for this moon orbit is 0 because that is a circular orbit, but the sun's gravitational force is doing some work to move the comet from position A to position C. That means comet is moving from position A to position C, and in this case the sun is sitting here. So obviously the centripetal force acting in this position will be towards the sun always. So the centripetal force is from this direction to this direction, and here this is from this direction to this direction. And similarly at each point it will be towards the sun, which is sitting at one focus of the ellipse, because that is the property of ellipse, that like a circle when it has only a center, but for a ellipse you have two focal points. Like if this is the major axis of the ellipse, then it has two focal points, and generally all these planets for which the elliptical orbit is formed around, so the planet is or the, let's say, the sun is always sitting at some one of the focal points of the elliptical orbit. So in this case the sun is sitting here, and from each point it will have a centripetal force acting on the object that is moving towards on the orbit around. So at each point your force has some direction, this is the force direction, and you are moving at some direction. So this is your x direction, and they are not perpendicular to each other because this is not a circle but this is an ellipse. This is an ellipse. So that is why your f dot x is never 0. Okay. And it will always have some work done. So the sun's gravitational force is doing work to move the comet from position A to position C. So these are the two correct answers. Now, question number 6 is that a small marble is projected with a velocity of 3 meter per second in a direction 15 degree from the horizontal x direction on the smooth inclined plane. Then the speed of the marble after 4 seconds is what? So question number 6, we can solve it here. What is the question again? A small marble is projected. See the adjacent figure, there is no figure given, but you have to draw a figure that there is a marble, it is projected, it is like sent in a projectile motion with some velocity in a direction 15 degree from the horizontal y direction. That means now your y has a horizontal direction on a smooth inclined plane. So whenever there is a plane, there are two dimensions involved. So in this case, we can take it like a xy plane, and y is along some direction and x is some direction on the plane. Now the speed v meter per second of the marble after 4 seconds will be what? So there is some formula that is predefined for such cases of projectile motions. We will be using that. First of all, this is the plane. So just let me check once whether they had actually given any diagram or not, because they should have given a diagram. So I check that and come back. Okay, so we are discussing this problem number 6, right? So let us see the problem statement again. So basically there is about a projectile motion of a marble, and the figure is not shown here, but it may be a mistake in loading the question. So it is mentioned that the marble has thrown in a projectile with a velocity of 3 meter per second, but that is at a direction 15 degree from the y-axis on the smooth inclined plane. So basically it is on a xy plane, but that xy plane is not flat, that is inclined at some angle, and that angle is basically 10 degree, which they have missed to put the figure here, but I have the figure, so I'll show you how the plane will look like, and there is an additional 10 degree inclination angle information that is missing from this question because the figure is missing. Otherwise, the idea is that you have to answer what is the speed of the marble after 4 seconds. So basic projectile motion acceleration velocity question. So the figure is important, that let's say this is your xy plane, right? So this is like this. This is your xy plane. Right, and then this is your y direction, and this is your x direction, and this vertical direction is z direction. So this angle is mentioned in the question, not in the question, but if they had put they would have put the figure, then this angle you could have seen as 10 degree. Now what is that? The thing that is actually thrown in a projectile motion. So it is thrown in an angle 15 degree from the horizontal y-axis. So if this is your y-axis parallel line, this dotted line, then this is thrown at some, it is thrown at some angle like this. So here this angle is your 15 degree angle, okay, 15 degree, and this is your y cap direction. So this is at which it is thrown, and this velocity is 3 meter per second, projectile velocity. So if this is making 15-degree angle with the y-axis, then you can easily say that this has a this has a component along y-axis, which is basically along this component there will be a component which is v cos 15 degree, that is 3 meter per second, so 3 cos 15 degree, and it will have a vertical component direction, and vertical will be basically this x direction, right? So this will be along this direction, there will be another component. So basically this blue line is along this actually. So I have drawn it like that, but yeah, they are basically parallel lines, and this is this, and this is 3 sine 15 degree. Now you know that along the z-cap direction, the vertical, the gravitational acceleration actually works. So this is g, right? So, but if this vertical thing is g, then you can also divide g into two components given this angle is 10 degree. So how you can divide that? So you can, so basically this was your g. So if this angle is 10 degree, uh, this angle is 10 degree, then this angle will also be 10 degree. So then you know how to divide it into components. So this is 10 degree, so this is cos 10 degree, and then you have this g sine 10 degree. Now notice that if this is your inclined plane, this dashed region, then this g sine 10 degree is an acceleration that is actually along this plane of the object of this xy plane. So this is along the plane. So this g sine 10 degree will be the effective acceleration acting in this case. Okay. And this is the velocity component for this direction. So now what you can do is that you know that formula for projectile motion for projectile motion. This is, we are looking at, let's say, x cap direction. We can work with components along different directions, right? So x cap direction, there is this acceleration along x, which is g sine 10 degree. There is this velocity along negative x, which is minus 3 sine 15 degree. So you know that you have under acceleration, you have your final velocity along x, vx equal to your initial velocity v naught x along x plus a x t, right? So this is basically the acceleration along x. This is the initial velocity along x, and vx is the velocity after time t. So from here you know that your total velocity vx after time t is equal to your initial velocity on with which the projectile motion has started. That is, if its initial throwing velocity is 3 meter per second, and its x-axis component is v naught x equal to minus 3 sine 15 degree, minus because this is along negative x-axis, so to compensate for that we have to put a minus sign. So this vx will be minus 3 sine 15 degree plus ax times t, right? So a is also has to be along the x direction, otherwise it will not be effective. So this a is g sine 10 degree. So g sine 10 degree times t. So then you have vx equal to, you can put the value of sine 15 degree from your calculator, plus you know your g value, that is 9.81 meter per second square. Then you put the value of sine 10 degree using your calculator, and then after 4 seconds it is asked in the question, so you have to multiply it by 4. So 4 seconds. So the total thing, if you calculate and put all the values correctly, you will see that Vx equal to 6.0 0.38 meter per second, right? So let us choose the option. So this is the correct answer that we have obtained. Now question number 7 is about consider the example of rocket motion in deep space discussed in this lecture. Let the mass of the rocket be m and the rocket ejects exhaust at some speed u. Suppose the rocket starts from zero initial speed with a full tank of fuel and reaches a final speed of u ln 9 when the tank is empty. So this is not time, this is tank, fuel tank. If the mass of the fuel tank is x times the empty rocket mass, then what is the value of x? So to solve this problem, either we can directly use the formula that is already taught to you in the lectures, but we can also start from the very starting point or very root of it and then like continue solving it. Okay, so I'll choose the other option. That means we'll solve it one by one, right? Now, how to do that? If you remember the lecture taught for this week correctly, there is a rocket motion in deep space type of a problem given, right? So, it is mentioned that in the rocket, for the rocket, let's say this is your rocket, okay? And it's the like fuel tank is actually ejecting gas from it. So, I'm not drawing it properly. That's the gas. As the fuel is burning out, the gas ejected out, and the idea is that rockets, empty rockets mass we take as capital M. So when the fuel tank has some fuel, so fuel tank fuel's mass is equal to del time, and the velocity of the rocket is v initially. So initially you have the momentum of the rocket is equal to the total mass, which is m plus delta m times this is v vector. So m plus delta m v vector. Now, at the end of the, when the rocket has lost all the fuel, when entire fuel exhausted, so del time becomes 0. So m net is equal to only m that is from the empty rocket. But now the velocity will be modified. Equal to then v plus delta v. So then this delta m that has been left from the rocket is actually the mass of the fuel that has been now ejected out, right? So this is the uh, mass of ejected out fuel. So also because of ejected the fuel ejecting out, it adapts to a velocity. So then the velocity of the net assembly will be the velocity of the rocket plus the additional velocity from the ejection of the fuel. So due to final velocity is equal to P plus del V plus U. U is the ejection velocity of the gas that is being added up. So you have initially you have this rocket, empty rocket which has a mass m, and you have this fuel tank filled totally, so it has not been exhausted out, so this has a mass delta m. So the total thing is m plus delta m, and it is moving at some velocity v. This is the time t initially, but at some later time, later state, then you have this rocket. Okay, but now the fuel chamber has been empty because all the gas has been ejected out. So this has been ejected out delta m mass of the gas. This is the empty rocket's mass. And its velocity is now changed as the time is now t plus delta t. So because of the delta t time interval, there is a delta v velocity change of only the rocket. And additionally, there is this u velocity added because of the ejected gas, right, or ejected fuel. So the net velocity in this direction becomes, so for only the rocket it was v plus delta v, but with adding up this u, we have v plus delta v plus u, right? So then what you get is that uh, your momentum at the initial state we did as pt m plus delta m v, but momentum at the final stage p t plus delta t is equal to only m is there because the body of the rocket and the fuel has been ejected fuel has been separated from each other. So this is the rocket part. So this is v plus delta v. Okay, this is only for the empty rocket. Plus the ejected out fuel has some mass delta m and it will have a velocity v plus delta v plus u. So this is from ejected fuel mass and this is the fuel mass velocity. So this is the fuel ejected fuel, that's velocity is v plus delta v plus u. So now because of what is the rate of change in, what is the change in momentum from initial to final? So change in momentum in delta t time, because you are going from t to t plus delta t, equal to delta p vector is equal to p vector at t plus delta t minus p vector at t. So you have this capital, now you have this one, you have this equation and you have this equation. So if you carefully subtract them, so we'll get this is the difference will be m delta p vector plus small m delta small delta m plus delta v plus u vector. This is delta p. Now you know the total mass equal to constant because that is a mass conservation rule. Total mass equal to constant, that means dm dt is equal to minus dm dt. There is this relation. Now you have, because it's the change in momentum in delta t time, so you can take what is the rate of change in momentum, delta p by delta t is equal to m delta v by delta t plus delta m by delta t delta v plus u vector. Okay. Now you can now replace m delta v by delta t plus this del m by del t you can replace by minus del m plus. So basically from here you can say that if your You have utilized this one. So now this and this will cancel out because delta of m is not giving you anything, because m is like a constant term, right? So this dm by dt, you can think of it like dm by dt, and so what you are getting is the delta v plus u. So delta v is the change in velocity, right? Plus delta m by delta t, delta v plus u. Now if the velocity does not change, then this delta v goes to 0 and we are only left with m. So this delta to moves to d. So m dv dt plus dm dt u vector. This is d t dt. When you have this limit applied, that limit delta t tends to 0. So what you have is that dp dt is this whole thing. So now you utilize this. So this is not here, this is here. You have to utilize it. That this is equal to m dv dt minus d capital M dt u vector. Okay. So because this is the rate of change in momentum, so we can call it as the external force, right? Because this is the rate of change in momentum, external force. So now if there is no external force applied, so if external equal to 0, then dp dt is equal to 0. So this whole thing becomes 0. So what you get is that dp dt is equal to 1 by m dm dt u vector. So this is your equation number 1, right? Now your equation number sorry, I think there is a mistake there. dp dt equal to 0 means this whole thing is equal to 0, right? So then m dv dt is equal to dm dt u, so dv dt equal to 1, no, it is fine. So now dv dt 1 by m dm dt u, okay, that is there. Now to further simplify it, you have this dv value, you take an integral, dv value is changing from initial time t0 to final time, so tf is ty initial is equal to u vector. This is dm by m, so this is dm by m from m initial to m final, which is equal to u vector ln of m this is vf vector minus vi vector is equal to, this is u vector ln of mf by mi. So v vector is equal to, this vi is the initial velocity, this is v0, this is v0. Now minus u vector ln of m naught by mf, where initial velocity is mi is equal to m naught, the final velocity is mf. So if you like reverse this order of inside the ln division, so then you get a minus sign outside. So this is what we have basically did here. Now once that is there, then this is some equation that we can utilize to solve our problem. Now this is the final velocity vf vector after t time, and this v0 is the initial velocity, u is the velocity of the ejected gas, and this m0 is the initial velocity of the rocket, and mm is the final velocity. So based on this, we can say, uh, now what was asking the question? Okay, so then you have this empty rocket mass as capital M, and x times capital M is the ejected gas mass, and final speed Vf is u ln 9. So ejected fuel mass is equal to, as given in the question, x times the empty rocket mass M. So M net, the net mass equal to M plus xm. Now you have to use the momentum conservation. So this is the final M plus xm. By using, or you can also directly proceed in getting the velocity right. So this is m plus xm. Okay. Now we just got this formula of final velocity, and because it has started with zero initial velocity, so v naught equal to 0, u is there, and m naught is the initial speed, initial mass of the rocket, that is m plus xm, final mass equal to m. From here you know that your vf is equal to v naught minus u ln of, so this is equal to, now this vf is mentioned in the question as minus u ln 9, here it is minus u ln. So from here we can solve it, and you get this m and m, this whole thing. So m by, so this is, you calculate it, you will get m equal x equal to 8. So x equal to 8 is the correct answer. So you can directly, for your practical purposes, you can directly remember this formula and obtain also out this problem solution. But to get the idea of how this equation is coming, that is why I have drawn it. So let us mark the actual question answer is 8. Now last question is, the third and fourth stages of a rocket are moving in deep space with a speed of v equal to 15,000, and a small explosive charge between the stages separates them. Mass of the third stage is 400 kg and the second stage is 200 kg at separation. The speed of the fourth stage has increased to some 15,100 km per hour immediately after separation. What is the speed of the third stage immediately after separation? Okay, so then this is number 8. It's mentioned in the question that the velocities. Now, what are the different mass from different parts? So, the mass from the third stage. This is 400 kg as given. Mass of fourth stage is equal to 3 equal to 200 kg. Now this is the velocity or the speed uh, at the fourth stage. The conservation of momentum principle, initial momentum is equal to the other direction, which is V4. So So from here, the energy conservation and momentum conservation relation in this case we get. This is into kg into 15,000 kilometer per hour is equal to 400 kg into V3. And this what is then you have we solve your V3 as so we get whether the answer is right or not. This is the correct answer. So that is how we solve the problems for this tutorial, and we'll meet for the next tutorial in the next week.